everyone, and welcome to our very first Where Is That video. The particular place we will be talking about is of course Liverpool. The reason for this is I am originally from Liverpool, so it was my old stomping ground, and I visit as often as I can because all my family still live there. Also, Liverpool is just a stand-up great city. There is a lot to do there and it always seems like something is going on. For example, we went a few weekends ago to have a few drinks on the docks. We weren't even aware that there was supposed to be something happening, but it turned out we walked right into the middle of a pirate festival. The city also has numerous areas such as the famous Albert Docks, the Chinatown district. It also has a great nightlife to explore and is home to two famous football teams, Liverpool FC and Everton FC. Not that I really watch football. There are also the super lamb bananas that are scattered throughout the city, but really don't ask why. It is also home to the famous liver bird, though people aren't really sure what type of bird it is. Some stories suggest it's a mythical or ancient bird, although popular consensus also suggests that it's some form of cormorant, but its appearance changes on various logos and statues throughout the city. The two most famous statues being the two liver birds perched atop the liver building on the waterside, where one looks inward to the land and to watch over the people, and also to make sure the pubs are open depending on which legend you're listening to, and the second looks out over the sea to watch for sailors coming into port and also for the city's prosperity. Popular legend also says that if the pair ever fly away, then the city would cease to exist and the world would be a worse place. So in this video we will explain the history and cultural significance of the city itself and how its various aspects have influenced the UK and the rest of the world. Liverpool is located in the northwest of England along the Mersey River in the county of Merseyside. The city goes back as far as 1190, when it was originally called Liverpool, which historians believe translates roughly as pool or creek with muddy water, possibly referencing the Mersey River itself. In 1207 it received a royal charter by King John, establishing it as a new borough, and it remained a small settlement that was mainly used to transport soldiers to Ireland at the time. In fact, the borough was so small and unimportant that the population dropped below 600 people by the 16th century. However, the city received a new charter from King Charles I, and with support from the local residents to secure new business, the city began a series of trades with the Isle of Man, Ireland, and also began regular shipping with the West Indies and the Americas. The first cargo ever recorded from the Americas was in 1648, and it was initially coal, salt and cloth from Cheshire and Lancashire that were exchanged for tobacco and sugar. The city planned a large restoration in 1660, and its first sugar refinery opened in 1670. Liverpool began a rapid rise in population, commerce and expansion, and by 1670 it was the second metropolis in Great Britain. By an Act of Parliament in 1699, the city became its own parish and gained its own customs authority. That's separate from Chester. Britain's very first wet dock was constructed in Liverpool with a capacity for 100 ships, and by the end of the 18th century, it accounted for nearly 80% of Britain's Atlantic slave trade activity, with ships that sailed all from Liverpool docks. In fact, the very first ship, the Liverpool Merchant, that transported slaves was recorded in 1699, the same year the city became its own parish, with the second ship following a year later. Their largest record for transporting slaves was in 1799, when a documented 45,000 slaves were brought over from Africa. There was eventually a demise in slavery up until it was finally abolished in all British colonies in 1833. That was caused by many factors such as corruption, slave insurance fraud, and an anti-slavery movement in Parliament by Liverpool-born politician William Roscoe. If you would like to know more, then we highly recommend visiting the International Slavery Museum in Liverpool, which is also part of the Merseyside Maritime Museum on the Albert Docks. Liverpool continued its boom as one of the largest trade and financial centres in Britain, as it became the world's largest centre for cotton production, leading into the Industrial Revolution. The population went from 6,000 to over 80,000, and Liverpool was connected to other major cities such as Manchester via railway and canal. The docks at Liverpool were expanded for the continuing success of trade based on strong ties with India and the Far East. By 1851, nearly 25% of the population were Irish-born as well, as the city received nearly 300,000 Irish immigrants in 1 year alone, due to the Great Famine of 1845 to 1849. It also began attracting workers from Wales and abroad, which is one of the contributing factors to Liverpool's cultural significance. Liverpool also played an interesting role in the American Civil War, as it built a ship for the Confederacy, and also the official end of the war happened during the final surrender, which was the CSS Shenandoah, which sailed to Liverpool and surrendered there. So eventually in 1880, after a numerous set of works and buildings being constructed, such as its first university, Liverpool was granted city status, and its boundaries expanded while its population had grown to 700,000 by 1901. When World War II approached, Liverpool was made the control centre for the Battle of the Atlantic. Due to this, there were over 80 air raids on the city, resulting in 2,500 people being killed, 11,000 homes being completely destroyed, and half the metropolitan area suffering damage of some sort. Over 70,000 people as a result were made homeless by the air raids. An interesting fact here is one of the ferries that operated on the River Mersey was called the Royal Daffodil. This ferry is famous because it was a civilian vessel that took part in Operation Dynamo, which was the evacuation of Dunkirk in 1940. The ship personally rescued 9,500 men over 7 trips between England and France over the course of a day, surviving torpedo and machine gun attacks until eventually a bomb passed straight through the centre of the ship and exploded under her. Fortunately, due to quick thinking and some very on-the-spot makeshift repairs involving wooden mattresses, it was able to make it back ashore. Another interesting fact was that all 4 members of the Beatles, you know those guys, right, were born during wartime, and John Lennon was even born during one of these air raids on October the 9th, 1940. This, of course, brings us on to the Beatles. It is pretty much impossible to mention Liverpool without mentioning the Beatles. In fact, I work with many people all over the world foreign to the UK, and the minute they find out I'm from Liverpool, they usually say, "Ah, the Beatles!" But that's okay, because they are pretty darn cool. Their rise to fame also led Liverpool into finding a new identity of youth culture in the 1960s. However, it's not just the Beatles, as Liverpool is famous for producing excellent talent in general, such as Echo and the Bunnymen, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and the Zootons, to name a few. But back to the history. By the 1980s, Liverpool was at its lowest post-war decline, as many employers had left the city, resulting in factory and dock closures, high-rise and unemployment, the development in gang culture, and people leaving in general. There was nearly 15% of land that was left derelict by people packing up and leaving. However, though, through much effort since the 1990s, Liverpool's experienced an economic revival where its economic growth has grown faster than the national average. And also, whereas the previous gang culture had given the city a certain reputation during the 80s, it now has the lowest levels of crime than nearly any other metropolitan area in the UK. In 2008, Liverpool became the capital of culture and experienced even further regeneration to the waterfront and various districts of the city, expanding its cultural base to attract even more tourism. For example, nearly all the museums in Liverpool are free to visit, such as the Museum of Liverpool, Walker Art Gallery, Maritime Museum, World Museum, and more. There's plenty to do during the day, and as mentioned before, it has a great nightlife. It has even expanded its docks and is in the process of renovating old trade particulars such as the Manchester Shipping Canal. So there we have it. I would highly recommend visiting the city as it really is one of the cultural souls of the UK. So please, if you like this video, give it a like down below, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.